What's happening, everybody? Welcome to the channel. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate you. If you've never been here before, please check out many of the videos that I have. Hit the subscribe button. Everybody else, welcome back. I did a little video earlier today about the correctional officers, the trial in the murder of Robert Brooks. As many of you know already, one officer was found guilty of murder in the second degree and manslaughter in the first degree. That was former Officer Kingsley, and Nicholas Kiefer and Matthew Gallagher were both found not guilty on all charges. They were found not guilty of murder and manslaughter, of gang assault, and of falsifying records. When I made the video earlier today, let me tell you what the big difference is going to be right now. I dealt a lot with my feelings, as most of us are. I dealt a lot on emotions, as most of us became emotional over the verdict. And what I didn't really speak about was the law. And the law is more important than feelings and emotions. It may not feel more important, okay? I myself spoke on my feelings and emotions. I will get into them again, but I didn't speak on the law. And so I'm going to explain to you why these correctional officers were found not guilty. And if I feel, now that I've calmed down a little bit, if I feel that they should have been found not guilty. So bear with me, because my emotions wanted them to go to jail for 20 years each. I felt all of them should have gone away to prison for 20 years, 15 years minimum. But after I stepped back and I looked at the law and what transpired, I do feel a little differently. I still feel like they should be in prison. I don't feel like they should have been found not guilty. But listen what I'm saying to you. I'm saying that I feel, and I'm not saying what the law determines. So let me explain it to you right now, so I'm not so long-winded. What happened was District Attorney Fitzpatrick thought that his ironclad evidence was the video, that the video was going to convict them, that the video was going to show the jury that these guys participated in a gang style beating and killing of Robert Brooks back in December. And so he made sure to play that video. But what happens is a video, the evidence, the video evidence, can either convict someone or it can clear someone. And what that video did was clear those two correctional officers, because the video didn't show Nicholas Kiefer doing anything to Robert Brooks. He did admit to pepper spraying Robert Brooks, and he claims that he pepper sprayed him because he needed to get the situation in control. Doesn't matter how we feel about that. According to the law, follow what I'm saying, guys. Nicholas Kiefer is not seen hitting Robert Brooks. So the video worked against District Attorney Fitzpatrick. He thought he was going to use that as evidence, but that evidence cleared Nicholas Kiefer. You follow what I'm saying? That doesn't mean that he was not guilty of other things. He may have been guilty and found guilty of something else, but it's very difficult, according to the law, to find Nicholas Kiefer guilty of murder or even manslaughter when he didn't physically put his hands on someone. Right? So you would think that they should at least find him guilty of gang assault or tampering with the records. That's a different story. But I understand now that my emotions have calmed down. If I was in the room, you have to think of yourself. If you were in the room and other people did that, Nicholas Kiefer also left the room after the pepper spraying. He left the room. So this is why. I'm not saying I agree with these people. I'm telling you according to the law. Now the same thing happens with Matthew Gallagher, the other officer that they found not guilty. Matthew Gallagher went and got a pair of shackles out of the truck, out of the van, the correctional officer van, and he put him in a pair of shackles. Putting him in a pair of shackles is actually protocol, right? And so he's saying that he was following protocol, okay? And he is also not seen on video assaulting or beating Robert Brooks. And this is what the jury was looking at. So the jury is saying to the judge and to the district attorney, the definition of murder means you intended to kill someone. That is the definition of murder. So someone who pepper sprayed Robert Brooks and didn't do anything to him didn't intend to kill him. So you can't find murder there. You follow what I'm saying? Right? And then now your feelings and emotions could get involved, and you could be like, I don't care, da da da. That's the feelings and emotions. I understand that. But pepper spraying him is not intentional murder. And then you say, what about manslaughter? Manslaughter means that the intent is gone. You didn't intend to kill him, but you are still responsible for his death. That's manslaughter. I know what manslaughter is. I was convicted of manslaughter in the first degree. That's what I did 17 years for, right? So how could you say that Nicholas Kiefer was responsible for his death when he didn't touch him? This is what the jury is saying. How could we say that Matthew Gallagher is responsible for his death when he didn't touch him, right? And so these are the reasons why they weren't found guilty of murder or manslaughter, because they're saying these two individuals didn't intend to kill him. The reason why they found David Kingsley guilty of murder and manslaughter is the video shows him choking Robert Brooks. It shows him with his hands on his throat. It shows him hitting Robert Brooks. So he bears the weight of responsibility for his death because he was seen in the video by the jury doing these things, and the other two correctional officers weren't seen doing these things. And then you go to the gang assault now. Shouldn't they be found? Yeah, well, they were standing in the room. What about that? They were standing in the room, so didn't they have an obligation as correctional officers to intervene? Because the motto, the slogan of the Department of Corrections is the care, custody, and control of a prisoner. But what supersedes the motto and the slogan of the Department of Corrections is the law. And believe it or not, in New York State, there is no law requiring anyone to intervene in an incident. They didn't have the liability, they didn't have the responsibility to intervene, which made them not liable. You follow what I'm saying? We're going according to law now. So by them not also they had a superior in the room, the sergeant. The sergeant supersedes them. So if they don't have a legal obligation to intervene and they have a superior on the premises who supersedes them, they can get they don't even need to get cleared from that because there's no law saying that they have to intervene. And the jury took 3 days because they wanted a couple of things. They wanted to see the video again several times because they wanted to see if Nicholas Kiefer and Matthew Gallagher actually played a role in Robert Brooks' death. They wanted to see the video again to see did they participate in the true violence and beating of Robert Brooks, and they didn't see that when they watched the video. And so this is part of the reason why they were found not guilty. Now personally, you're talking about personal. When I go back to feelings, I think it doesn't matter what I think though, because we got to go by the law. I don't and it doesn't matter what you think. I'm being honest, because the jury is instructed to go by the law. So, what we have to feel good about is that the officers, the previous officers that received 22 years in prison, there were two of them that received 22 years in prison, a third that received 15 years in prison, another one that got two and a third to 5 years in prison. We have to be thankful that they were convicted. And what I believe transpired is in the conversations out of the public is that the district attorney told those officers, the ones that got 22 years, we have you dead to right. Because those are the ones on film that are kicking, punching, choking. They said, so you better take these plea bargains because you're going to end up with life in prison. You guys are going. But with the other three guys that went to trial today, they didn't have them on tape. And that's why they decided to go to trial. It wasn't because they just didn't want to accept the plea bargain. It's they knew that when people saw the video, the people would see that they didn't participate in the actual beating. Now, my feelings are they still should have went away for falsifying the records, but that all falls on a sergeant as well because the sergeant is the one that signs off on the reports. Even though they falsified a report. The sergeant was the one that signed off on it. He's the one that okayed it. And so they got cleared because of their false reports. But I feel that they should have went away for those false reports. And I also feel that you could have at least convicted Nicholas Kiefer for pepper spraying him and charged him with assault. Right? But then, they say you're reaching for straws. So I believe these are the legal reasons why we saw what we saw. Pardon me. It is very frustrating, you know. But all I could, and we have to be happy that some of them are away. Out of the 10, 6 of them are in prison. Of course, you want all of them, but that's just what we want. That's what our feelings want. Does it mean that it's right for all of them to go? What if See, we don't know. I'm just going to play devil's advocate for a minute. I'm going to play devil's advocate because it's important to do. A critical thinker, and I always try to be a critical thinker. A critical thinker needs to view all sides of the story. A critical thinker needs to take in all the facts and then make a decision based on those facts, taking his feelings out of it, taking opinions out of it, taking emotions out of it, listening to all sides of the story. This is what critical thinking is. And then making an analysis of the whole situation based on the facts. Now, none of us know Nicholas Kiefer personally. None of us know Matthew Gallagher personally. We know that they're correctional officers. Not all correctional officers are bad. I met some very good ones. I'm not sticking up for them. Listen to what I have to say right here. What if, we know for a fact that Nicholas Kiefer did not beat Robert Brooks. He wasn't one of the ones that beat him. So how do we not know that when the beating was transpiring, that Nicholas Kiefer said to himself, I'm not doing that. I don't want no part of this. He knows he can't stop his fellow correctional officers from doing what they're doing. They're a gang. They're going to do what they're going to do, and they're in the middle of it. And what if Nicholas Kiefer says to himself, you know what? I don't want no part of that. You know what I mean? I pepper sprayed the guy to help him get in control when it was all starting, but I didn't know you guys were going to go this far, and I'm leaving the room. And that's what he did. And if a man did that, should we find him guilty of murder? Take your emotion out of it. Because that's basically what he did, right? And Matthew Gallagher could have said the same thing when he saw everything transpiring. He could have said, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that to this dude. I'm not kicking this dude. I'm not choking this dude. You want me to? You want? He had an order from his sergeant to go get the shackles. I'll go get the shackles. He put the shackles on him. Now that these other 6 guys are beating him to death, and Gallagher says, "You know what? I don't want no part of that." Should we find him guilty of murder because of his little part of going to get the shackles when there's really no other evidence? So I hope you guys understand where I'm coming from. I said I was going to explain the legal reasons on why they were found not guilty. Now, Nicholas Kiefer and Matthew Gallagher, when I say they're found not guilty, they are free. They were free already, out on bail, but they are free now. There's no probation. There's no parole. They were found not guilty. They've never been convicted of a crime, right? They are back to normal citizens and they have their full rights and they can get their jobs back in the Department of Corrections. Don't care how you feel about it. I'm telling you that they are able and capable and legally able to get their jobs back as correctional officers because they were found 100% innocent, which means they have no responsibility at all for what happened to Robert Brooks. That's what it means when you're found innocent. And if you were found innocent of a crime, you would want all your rights restored. They'll probably be entitled to back pay for the year that they haven't been to work, right? I don't know if they will be correctional officers again, but will probably be allowed to be. They'll be allowed to have a law enforcement job, even if they don't go back into the Department of Corrections. You know, so yes, that's part of it. They're free and clear. Those guys are free and clear now. Um, and that's really about it with that. This was I had hoped they went away and did some time for the gang assault. I think maybe some charge they should have been, but they didn't. They didn't really assault those two. That's what I'm saying. That's why I say the law comes into play. All right, guys. I don't think I can't remember anything else to tell you about that. And there's one more officer, that has to go to trial. That's not till January. He's the last one. We got to feel satisfied that 6 of the 10 went in there. Now the feds can pick up the charges. I don't think the feds will, to be honest. A lot of people ask me this question. Can the feds? Yeah, the feds can pick up the case. Feds can do anything they want. You know what I mean? Uh, but will they? I can't make that call. I don't think that they will, but it is possible. The civil lawsuits will be there, of course. Even Nicholas Kiefer and Matthew Gallagher will probably be in the civil lawsuit. The New York State Department of Corrections is being sued by Robert Brooks' family. The officers are probably being sued personally, unless they're protected, by the union and the state, which I'm not so sure. That's not my expertise. I only know a little bit about that. But hopefully you'll understand a little more about why things happen the way that they did, you know? And that's it for now. I'm going to wrap this up. I'll talk to you guys later. Any questions in the comments? Uh, Feel free to ask. Take care, guys.